Hello and welcome to another episode of David's Divergent Discussions. I'm your host, David Gray Hammond, and here with me I have Katie Munday. And we were going to have Priscilla with us, but unfortunately, Priscilla's been unable to come this evening. So we'll definitely do another one with the three of us, though, I think, because we'll be a good team. That'll be good. I'll start with a brief audio description. So I'm David Gray Hammond. I'm a white Mediterranean male with a beard, a lip piercing. I'm quite large. I have a pair of sunglasses on because I've lost my regular glasses. And I don't have an ear tunnel in. I just have a massive hole in my ear. So try not to look at that because it's probably quite weird. I'm wearing a black vest top, sat in my very blue room with a baby's crib in the background. And yeah, I think that's. Oh, I have a shaved head. Yeah, I have a shaved head as well. Katie, would you like to do a brief audio description?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a large white person with large round glasses. You can see me from the shoulders up. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I've got relatively all right looking hair today. Short hair with kind of fringy bit on the top. Sat in my usual space on a grey sofa in front of very hideous green curtains. And I feel like, David, the last time we spoke to each other, you were also wearing sunglasses. When are the new glasses coming? Is that a thing?
So I have made an optician's appointment because I figured the way I'm going to get around my glasses costing a fortune is to hope that my eyesight has changed.
Okay,
So
David, you could see.
I've made I've made an optician's appointment. I'm hoping my eyesight has changed, and therefore I will be entitled to help with the cost of the lenses.
Yes, yes, I like that.
Because if not, like glasses for me are very expensive. These look very thin, but they're actually called ultra thin lenses. That because if I had regular thickness lenses, um, it would look like I had magnifying glasses for eyes.
Mm, mm. I think that's a really good start for our conversation today. Actually, like the expense of just being able to see stuff,
Yeah, and
or
I,
being
I
able to go about in our everyday lives, just doing ordinary shit.
and
Yeah.
obviously we're here to talk about neuroanarchy and privilege, and I think
Mm,
it's probably best to actually flip that and start with the privilege here because autistic people don't tend to have a lot of privilege. Neurodivergent people in general tend to come from underprivileged demographics. So,
mm,
you know, it's a relevant conversation, I think, and yeah, definitely in terms of my own experience, I mean, I do have some privilege in that I can work. I do work. Um, I'm a white male as well, which gives me some privilege. But what I will say is that one area I don't have privilege is that if my eyesight hasn't changed, I cannot afford to see if I lose my glasses. And I think that's something to discuss maybe in terms of privileges. There's a great deal of inequality when it comes to financial status amongst autistic
mm,
people. And I
mm,
think it has a lot to do with employment inequality.
mm.
Um, even for me, like, yeah, I work full time, but actually that's self-employed work. Like, I do work for a charity for a few hours a week, but beyond that, most of my work I have to have complete control over my hours because if a boss has control over my hours, I will cease to exist.
Mm, mm. Yeah, 100%. Who was it I was talking to the other day and we were talking about tax returns?
It wasn't.
Jesus wept. I did my first lot of tax returns last year. Um, what? What? What do you want from me? I
What they
didn't
want
understand
from you
any
is
of the questions. And Jay helped me with pretty like 99% of it. I was like, what the hell? And because I do work through Awesome Training, so and they're based in Southern Ireland. When it was asking about, oh, have you been paid from overseas? And I'm like, Southern Ireland isn't part of the UK. they're part of Europe still, and I was, like literally, I was like, I've totally utterly lost the plot. So, and then I wonder, I suppose, about this is not me prying into your situation, David, but like what does pension look like? What does all of those things kind of look like if a lot of us are self-employed? Those of us who can be self-employed, of course.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like pension looks like I have a pension scheme where I have a contracted job for a few hours a week, but as most of my money comes from self-employment, I don't actually have much of a pension. I don't
Mm,
think I'm ever going to have much of a pension because
mm.
let's face it, state pension is a joke.
LOL. Yeah, yeah. I don't think by the time we get to pension age, we will not. State pension won't exist, David.
I actually don't think we're going to get to pension age because I'm pretty sure the retirement age is just going to keep going up.
Oh, I thought I thought you just meant like no, we're just going our 40s. That's what I'm thinking. Not gonna make it, mate. It's just
Mm.
oh.
Yeah, although there is a very disturbing conversation to have there around early mortality,
Mm,
which is a
mm,
problem for autistic people, which is
mhm.
also relevant to privilege because it's probably the lack of privilege that contributes to our early mortality.
100%, 100%. Um, oh God, that's such a lot to unpick. I think the biggest problem for that is probably healthcare inequity. I would say that because that's
Yeah,
what I always talk about. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about this before we even came on here about not being respected or valued in the way you talk about your body and your experience, especially if you're a woman or gender minority person going into the doctors, just like not being taken seriously until something really, really bad happens.
yeah.
Um, you know, and then perhaps the things that you have been able to be privileged in, going to work, doing various things like that, you can't do anymore because things have gone from what could have been quite a small issue to something pretty major.
It's funny you should mention that because I had a TikTok video go viral a little while ago, and recently it went viral again on Facebook. And I was talking in it about the fact that autistic people in healthcare settings, their pain is not taken as seriously because we don't show it in a textbook way. We have a
Mm,
different relationship with pain to what healthcare professionals are trained to identify.
mm,
And one of the things that stood out in the comments section on both social media sites, autistic birth givers have awful experiences of giving birth because they're told you're not in labor yet, you can't be in that much pain. 10 minutes later, there's a baby in their arms. Like,
mm, mm.
and I'm hearing a lot of really worrying things that actually, I can feel my privilege there as a male that I don't have to go through that.
Mm,
Uh, I
mm,
mean, there's other areas where I don't have as much privilege. Like, I don't show pain the same way as a neurotypical male would. So doctors generally just assume I'm okay, and I'm sat here talking to you like this. Like, no, I'm in immeasurable pain. I don't know how to explain it. I just don't respond to it. Like,
mm,
and that's
mm.
the thing. I will laugh when I'm in pain as well, which apparently is not normal. I've been told.
No, no. Yeah, I had that like talking about giving birth. Like, I was on the opposite end of that. Like, my pain threshold is apparently exceedingly massive. So inducement to basically like speed things along. I was 2 centimeters dilated for about 9 million years, it feels. So they basically got things started. And I think there's like a there's a level in it from like 1 to 20 or something like that. And when they get to 20, that's like the biggest pain. We can't do any more than that. Boom, 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 boom. And I was like sitting there like 18, like, okay, like still on gas and air. And they were like, are you still okay with just gas and air? And I'm like, yeah, like when is this, like, is the baby coming at some point? Like, I don't know, are you not in a lot of pain? No, not really, mate. Like, and everyone was just fussing around me all the time. And I was like, you can't just believe me. I'm not trying to be like strong and brave and all that. I've been in the hospital for 3 days now. I actually just want to get my baby out. I'm not, playing some kind of, oh yeah, I'm double hard mummy, not feeling any pain. So
Yeah.
it's a really weird thing that people expect you to act a certain way, and then when you don't, they're just dumbfounded.
But the problem with those assumptions in healthcare settings, and this applies across the entire scope of medicine, is when you have expectations on how a person should be unwell or should be in pain, that has knock-on effects for how you treat them. So if you're approaching an autistic person, for example, as a neurotypical person, there is a good chance you are going to not treat them as well as you could because you don't understand what their discomfort looks like.
Mm, mm, yeah, 100%. I just wanted to point out something Anushka said. They said that I feel privileged. I did go through birthing, which is also something we should absolutely talk about.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. Like, I appreciate that there are some people who just can't get pregnant and try to get pregnant and have really like awful, yeah, really awful time trying to get pregnant or keep pregnancies. So like I appreciate that as well. That's a really big thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, healthcare inequality is probably one of the most obvious places where neurodivergent people, I want to broadly refer to neurodivergent people.
Yeah. Please.
Healthcare inequality is probably one of the most obvious spaces where it's happening. That because I think people are a lot more vocal when, for example, they've been left in physical pain. But it may not get as much attention as like communication invalidation, where our communication is taken, as less trustworthy because we're neurodivergent. But what I find interesting is that actually both of those areas link together. So, when we're talking about inequality and lack of privilege in neurodivergent communities, you have to consider all the different intersections. So we may not talk about communication invalidation as much as scary healthcare stuff, but actually a lot of the time that scary healthcare stuff is happening because people aren't validating what we're communicating.
Yeah, 100%. I think we saw this a lot in the cancer service inequity research I've been part of, which was with the like disabled community, like the broader disabled community. Like, if even getting to the doctors, having the money, having the means to get there, knowing that you can safely get there, having someone to go with you if you need that. Like, sometimes it's not just, oh, just go to your doctors, or making an appointment at your doctor's when you're deaf or hard of hearing. It's an absolute nightmare
Yeah.
because you have to go down there. So there's all very well saying, oh, you just need to book an appointment, and oh, why don't you go to the doctors? And well, if you're gonna find it a struggle to get there anyways, and you don't have the resources to get there wherever there is, and then you're going to be invalidated when you do get there because you're not performing pain correctly, then you can massively understand why autistic people and disabled people in general just don't go to the doctors as much as we should.
Yeah, and I want to just for a second mention that another problem I have is when people only account for like one type of disability causing an issue with a form of communication. So people will immediately go, well, if you're deaf or hard of hearing, you'll struggle to use a phone. But I know autistic people who cannot use a phone. And so the expectation for them to use a phone to book a doctor's appointment effectively boxes them out of, having a doctor's appointment, which can be really dangerous.
We had an online service. You know what I'm like with apps and technology. I'm a bloody nightmare. So we had an app service for our doctor's surgery. Fantastic. And then ADHD, hi. Just like kept forgetting my NHS number. Then I couldn't remember my sign-in thing, and then I've just been booted out of it. So now I have to ring the doctors. I can't. Not that I ever go to the doctors, but I should do. So it's like, and I see that quite a lot with kind of, this is going to sound like a really sweeping statement, but it is very specifically with the group of people I've been working with kind of older generations saying it's all very well things going technological and stuff like that, but it boxes quite a lot of us out
Yeah.
because if you're an older person, like so some of the people I was talking to were older people who didn't have any younger people in their lives, who didn't have the ability to be able to ask people how to do things or go to the library and be able to get involved in using computers, phones, whatever, or having even the means to buy this technology, let alone understanding how to use it. Then actually, if it's all going automated, then that becomes a bit of an issue too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to highlight that NT in an ND world here says that they've realized now that this is why they haven't been to a doctor in 10 years until recently.
What, they're talking on the phone?
Yeah, I think it was that was when the comment came
Yeah.
in, was when we were talking about the phone stuff. I think there's there's a lot to be said for the over reliance on these technologies. And
Mm.
it would be good even if, surgeries and other services really let you book appointments by email, for example.
Oh my god.
Could you imagine how much
Oh,
that would change the world if you could just book via email?
that would be amazing. I would love this. Oh,
Oh, NT in an ND world, just weighed in to say they were talking about the gaslighting, not the
mm,
phones.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, just can't get anything done. And then people are like, "Oh, why haven't you been to the doctors about this?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm perceived as a woman. I'm overweight. I'm an ex-smoker, and I have mental health issues.
Yeah,
No one's going to take me seriously for anything." And adding another thing that David and I were talking about again earlier, about motherhood as well, and this kind of expectation that mothers should just be all like main caregivers, but mostly mothers, because there's misogyny definitely wrapped within this. There's the idea that yeah, you should just be knackered all the time, and your mental health is going to be bad, and then it's just like, so yeah, off you pop.
yeah,
Oh, all right. Oh, right.
yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really
Actually, I saw Dr.
helpful.
Monique Botha share a tweet earlier about the fact there's a research project where they were giving women in labor placebo medications, and they were saying that's really unethical, and people were calling them anti-science and stuff for saying it was unethical. And I was like, what in the medical misogyny is this? Yeah,
I don't even know what to say to that. It's just too much to unpick. It's just too
yeah.
much to unpick. Why
Like,
would you be
who
given
approved
something?
that research?
What? Oh, how could you be given something that you're told is one thing and then isn't anything?
Yeah,
When you're in a vulnerable position, I've got to say, you're in no more of a physical vulnerable position than when you're giving birth to a child.
yeah,
Like, so how can you just say, "Oh yeah, no, we'll just"? I'm not being funny. Like when I designed my what's the blooming back injection?
oh, the epidural.
Epidural. When I signed for my epidural, I didn't have my glasses on. I'd been up like 2 days. I'd been spent like 12 hours trying to push his baby out of me. I can see. You've got to read this bit of paper and sign it. Like, mate, I'm not on planet Earth at the moment. I'm
Yeah,
not on planet Earth. How am I reading this and then signing this with any kind of? But you can't do it without me signing it. So you just scribble away, and then yes, that's yeah, really that's really poor. I shall
yeah.
have a look at that later. That's not good.
But, obviously we're here to talk about privilege and neuroanarchy. So why does the conversation around privilege feed into neuroanarchy?
Yes, but well, I suppose like neuroanarchy is something that I've been kind of an idea that I've kind of been toying with for a couple of years now. It may exist elsewhere, but it's something I've been toying with for a little while, anyways. Which is this kind of idea that there isn't a hierarchy within either neurological groups like autistic people. or neurodivergent people in general, or just anyone who has a brain and a central nervous system. There's just people know that's a lot of what I do these days is research based work, and you can't reference things that aren't peer reviewed. And that's really a problem because there is so much. In fact, Terra Vance was going on about this the other day. There is so much work that is out there that is brilliant, which is fantastic, which is groundbreaking, and yet can't be referenced. So people doing blogs, writing articles online, doing their own websites, doing stuff like we're doing today, like none of it can be referenced. Or it can be referenced and people can just say what they like about it, as was the case with Terra recently. And they were talking about how many times they've had their work referenced, but not. Yeah, then there's another slant to that where they're also indigenous to Turtle Island, so there's being referenced by white scholars, and it's just, but then also being misrepresented in
Yeah.
referencing. It's so within research that's a big thing, but I think in everyday life it's a massive thing. Functioning labels of autistic people and who's deemed useful and who isn't, and who is a drain on society and who isn't, and classism, various, the patriarchy, everything. So for me, it's just another layer of deconstruction of like hierarchies.
Yeah.
Which I'm very much working on at the moment, which involves a lot of decolonization as well, and a lot of privileged people like myself. And my biggest privilege I have in life is being white and being a mouth speaker. So these are things that I'm kind of working with at the moment, kind of racism and xenophobia, and because I think a lot of us say, oh, we're not racist, or think we're not racist, but we've all perpetuated it, whether we meant to or not. And then obviously there's conversations around intent versus how it's come across to people and stuff like that. Yeah, hopefully I've actually answered that question. I feel like I went on a bit of a ramble, but basically the biggest thing of it is that there are no hierarchies within neurological groups or just across all of us, as far as I'm concerned. Like, it just doesn't, I don't
Yeah.
think anyone's any better because they have an IQ of this, or they come from this background, or they have this qualifications, or whatever. And I realize the irony of me doing that as a privileged person.
And
Or
I think,
maybe I'm the best kind of person to say that kind of thing. I don't know. It's a really weird one.
yeah, my own interest in neuroanarchy kind of falls within the idea I've talked about of autistic rhizomes. So
Mm,
a rhizomatic community is kind of, I took concepts from Deleuze and Guattari, and I was thinking about their idea of this interconnected network that has no entry or exit point. So you don't
mm,
start here and end here. It's just an interconnected network of communities, in my mind, that whilst they have connections with each other, no one part is dependent on another. So
mm,
if this part drops out, it's not going to, destabilize the rest.
mm,
Um, and obviously, a rhizome scientifically is sort of a part of a plant's root. It grows in both directions. But I have this interest in neuroanarchy because what I see in some areas of the autistic community, particularly, these independent sort of groups. For example, that I'm in quite a lot of Discord servers, um, and they're all independent of each other, but they're still connected because people share those spaces. So I'm in multiple of those servers, and other people are in multiple of those servers. So they all have that connection and sharing information with each other, but none of them will be destabilized if one of them goes.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and I think that can be important because when we don't have to rely on other parts of our network, you can't have this over dependence that comes from privilege, where someone has so much power and privilege that we all become dependent on them. You know, no one controls the flow of
mm,
information, as it were. And that's kind of what interests me about neuroanarchy, is that when we decentralize our communities and instead take this rhizomatic structure, we take away the need for power because no one needs to rely on the others. They have benefits being connected, but also they are still stable without them.
mm. Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason why so many neurodivergent, chronically ill, disabled people that I talk to who also just who want to be involved in communal living
Mm,
or already are, it just kind of makes sense for who we are as people, I think. I think it makes sense for all people,
yeah.
but, capitalism. Um, yeah, I just think that would, yeah, make an
The,
awful lot of sense for communal living and, just basic respect for everybody.
but to my mind, one of the main reasons this rhizomatic structure would be different is if you imagine information as being traded rather than being traded for gain, it's being traded mutually for mutual benefit. So
Mm,
the people creating the information benefit from their own rather than, someone at the top who gets most of the benefits of the trading of that information, which they then trickle down, which it never does, trickle down to the people underneath. So it's getting rid of that hierarchy of someone in charge of what's going on within that network, that
mm,
community.
mm, mm. Yeah, definitely. And creating knowledge and recreating knowledge together. Like that's yeah. I don't want to start talking about social constructivism,
No,
constructionism, because I don't think anyone would be particularly interested in that. But that's a big thing for me, like how yeah, not to go too boring for anyone, but like how we all experience the same systems, but we all experience them from our own perspectives.
yeah,
So, but we can't understand those systems until we understand the perspectives of everyone from who are under them,
yeah,
So the idea that any one person or any one group of people has more information, more knowledge, um, than others is just like beyond ridiculous. More power to disseminate stuff, yeah, to share things,
mm,
definitely. Like, I mean, look at the media press in the UK; it's beyond ridiculous with how conservative it is, and they can just share pretty much whatever they like, which is horrifying. Um, I think I had a wider point to that, but I may have lost it.
well, I'll jump in with my point before I lose it.
Go.
Neuroanarchy, to my mind, and the subsequent sort of autistic rhizome I'm describing, it relies on being able to sit with your own discomfort. So when someone with less privilege tells you how people with your privilege have caused harm to them,
Mm,
we don't just ignore the bits of information that make us uncomfortable.
mm,
You know, and I think perhaps this is almost queering how we understand information, because I think in the West we've got this idea that, peer-reviewed information is the best and anything below it is anecdotal. But actually we have to offset that and take an approach of all information is valid and equally respected, regardless of whether it hurts your feelings or not.
yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Um, yeah, I get that around non-binary and using they them pronouns all the bloody time, as you can imagine. Like people having very strong feelings about it. You don't need to have strong feelings about it.
Yeah, no,
You don't. You really don't. And if you have strong feelings about it, that's fine. That's something for you to work out on
yeah.
your own.
But
Please don't do that with me. because it's taken me a long time to get to where I am
Yeah.
and be as comfortable as I am in my skin. Don't put more emotional labor on me, mate. If you want to learn about it, I do courses on this. You can pay me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you can pay me for that. That's totally fine. But if that's not happening, then you need to work out your own shit on your own time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think this is one of the other things as well, though, that has to come into neuroanarchy, is that you've got that paradox of tolerance, haven't you? You know, that when we tolerate the intolerant, society overall becomes more intolerant. Um,
Yeah.
so, whilst, you know, information should have sort of equal weighting, I think we've got to be careful to weed out the bigotry, because where
Mm.
those weeds grow, it's going to obscure the power balance, because for some reason bigotry always seems to attain more power than anything else. It inadvertently creates the hierarchies we're trying to avoid.
Oh, I don't think it inadvertently does that.
No,
No, I don't think
no,
inadvertent would
no,
be the
I
word.
don't think it's inadvertently either. That's
Yeah.
almost like a reflex word for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you're being too kind. No. Um, yeah, and it's really hard. I've recently written about this, um, around like, is grassroots advocacy, activism, whatever you might want to call it, um, against working within these systems, or working within academics and research, like what level does the that you work in have the most impact? And as a person who does spread over like three of those things, like it's hard to actually know. And I just feel like academic speaking, like I've landed on my feet in a lot of ways because of the people I work with, and a lot of them are autistic. Um, but what's the point I'm getting at? Come on, Katie, come on, brain. Um, yeah, it just feels like you're banging your head against a brick wall sometimes with like academics and but even in the voluntary sector, working in the disability voluntary sector, it's all hard. I think that's the point I was getting at, is I don't know what has more impact, but it's all hard work and it's all bloody exhausting, and it shouldn't have to be down to disabled and neurodivergent people all the bloody time.
You see, there's a couple of principles I take with, you know, in terms of what's most effective. Because, first of all, I think of, and I cite this liberally, Cloud Atlas. There's a quote in it where, you know, the young man, he's just burnt his father-in-law's slavery contract, lost him a lot of money. The father-in-law's very angry and says, you know, no matter what you do, in context, he's talking about, you know, abolishing slavery, and he says to the guy who's just burned his contract, you know, no matter what you do, it'll never amount to more than a drop in the ocean. And his son-in-law replies, what is an ocean if not a multitude of drops?
Mm,
So that's one of my principles, is, you know, it doesn't matter how big or small your contribution is, it is part of that ocean that is going to
mm,
create change. The
mm,
other principle is a story. I think it's quite a popular story, but it's one I remember my mum telling me a lot growing up. And there's a young boy with his father on the beach, and all these starfish have washed ashore. And he walks up to them and starts throwing them back into the ocean one at a time. And his father says, "There's hundreds here. You're never going to save them all." And the son turns around and says, "Yeah, but," and he picks up a starfish, throws it in. He goes, "I just saved that one though." And he picks up
mm,
another, goes, "And I saved that one too." So I think sometimes we've been misled into believing that everything we do has to have like a big macro effect on
mm,
everything. But
mm,
actually, those two principles together tell me that the little drops are what create that huge change. You know, we feel like, you know, we have to be doing big things to change the world, but we don't. It's those everyday acts of kindness and activism
mm,
that create momentum.
mm. Yeah. I think that's a very ADHD thing for me, to be involved in all the things.
Oh, absolutely. I
All
mean,
the things, and they're all based around the same thing. So yeah, it's just I just think it's really really hard.
yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
I feel like um, a responsibility as a trans autistic person to with the privilege that I do have to be able to help other trans and gender diverse autistic people. Like I feel like a profound responsibility for that.
Yeah,
Um, which is lovely, but also like hello burnout. So
mm,
yeah, I don't know if anyone else, I'm assuming that's why we're all into activism, because we just have this amazing need to feel like, guy, I wish I had someone like me when I was a kid, or even in my early 20s. That would have been really, really nice. Um, yeah, and I think, yeah, I feel like there's a slight worry there around burnout and various other things, like knowing what the boundary looks like in using your privilege for something good, and also whether I get to decide what I'm doing is good or not.
yeah,
Do you see what I mean? Like, as a I always say white because I think it's racial issues are like the biggest issues in my mind for privilege, most definitely.
yeah. I
But
agree.
like, as a cis het passing person, I'm not either of those things. Gross. As an able-bodied passing person, again, I'm not that either. But like, there's a lot of things that people will take me more seriously, and I have to wade through less shit because of those things. But it's how, it's a massive responsibility in my eyes to be able to do something to help people. But do people want my help? Oh, it's hard.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight NT and an ND Wild here commented to say it shouldn't have to happen to you to matter to you, and I
Mm,
think that's a very poignant thing to have here because actually, yeah, you know, the, we're all human at the end of the day. So if a group of humans is being treated less kindly to another group of humans, that's something that should be addressed. We should look at what's going on there.
mm.
You shouldn't have to be part of that disenfranchised group to want to make a difference.
Yeah, 100%. I think the point that I'm trying to get at, but my brain's a bit scrambled today, is that I don't want to have like a white savior complex. Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, I want to be able to help people, but do it appropriately in a way that they actually want, as opposed to me just going, oh well, I'm an intellectual, and I think that because I'm one autistic person and I feel this way, that all autistic people feel this way. Like, there's a really thin line between that really arrogant, well, I'm part of the group and therefore I speak for all of the group. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that can be problematic because we even in neurodivergent communities where we largely don't see a hierarchy, we you do see certain groups within who seem to control the narrative.
Mm. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, sorry, my mind's gone a bit blank at the moment. Typical David's divergent discussions. We're being very divergent right now. Um, I was thinking when you were talking about the ADHD thing of having to be involved with everything. I'm the same, and I had this conversation with my psychiatrist who is currently doing ADHD stuff with me, and he was like, like, are you impulsive? I was like, I've got like 15 different job titles.
What kind of
Like,
question is this? No, what?
are you impulsive? Does a bear shit in the woods?
I'm psychotic, OCD, and ADHD. What on
Yeah,
earth do you think is going on here?
yeah. And this is the thing. They're always going, "Oh, you're so atypical." What they mean is, I don't fit their weird stereotype for a schizophrenic OCD person in recovery from addiction. Like, you know,
Because you're not
it's
doing it correctly, David.
yeah. Well, the problem is that I'm a little too proud of my madness for them. Like, my
Yeah, I don't
psychiatrist
like
is
that.
very good, but he does get uncomfortable with the fact that I'm not afraid to call myself mad. Like, and I don't feel I owe anyone my sanity. As long as I'm not putting people in danger, I don't see why I should have to tone myself down.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I feel that I'm getting that way. Sorry, am I over trampling what you're
No,
saying?
no, carry
No.
on.
Okay. I feel like I'm getting that way with being fat as well.
Yeah,
Like I've always been a large person, right? I eat a lot, I don't do much exercise. Like, yeah, welcome. So and I think I always used to feel I've never been I'm quite body neutral anyways. Like there's good things about being in a meat suit. There's bad things about being in a meat suit. I have no choice. This is where my soul, brain, mind, whatever you want to call it, my essence, the essence of Katie has arrived, right? So, but I feel like I'm leaning into yeah, I am a fat person. Yeah, and I'm proud that my body made a baby and then fed a baby,
yeah,
and I'm proud that I'm not I would say I was attractive. But I'm not like, and this is no judgment on people who are thin, but I'm not stereotypical model, attractive, whatever. And that don't matter. It don't matter. Don't mind. It's fine. And I'm leaning into that, and I see that especially in like queer and feminist writing around leaning into whatever your parts of your body that are supposed to be shameful or gross, grotesque, say certain things about your lifestyle and things like that. Like I found when I started doing that with madness, and when I started doing that with migraines and various other chronic things I've got going on, I'm like, why wouldn't I also do that around fatness?
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
Like, so I'm kind of coming to that. But as soon as you say to people, yes, because I'm fat or whatever, people are just like, when I was smaller, they used to be more shocked by the fact that I said that. They'd be like, no, and all clambering over themselves, saying like, no, oh, you look fantastic. I said I'm fat. I didn't say I looked minging.
yeah.
The
I
fact
know.
that you think that fat people are unattractive, that's a you thing. That's not a me thing. That's
Yeah,
very much interesting about how you see fat people.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know my own relationship with my weight. When I was, in my early 20s, I was, typical drug addict. Really, there was nothing of me. And
Mm.
then I got sober and went on antipsychotics. And guess what? One of the main side effects of antipsychotics is. Um, and but this is the bit that always gets me, because I've come to a place where, like, I would like to be thinner purely from a health perspective.
100%, yeah.
Um, but doctors need to stop telling me to lose weight when they're the ones prescribing the medication that caused my weight gain. Like, it's very frustrating. Like, because the other thing they do is refer me to services who go, well, you're on antipsychotics, so we probably can't do much. So I'm back to the doctor who carries on commenting on it. And I'm like, we're not achieving anything here. We've established I'm overweight. What are we going to do?
Also, it's not a shock to me when I go into the doctors and say, "Yeah, you're obese." Yeah,
I've learned to do,
like I'm walking around with my eyes shut, or like I can't feel the space that I'm taking up with my body. Like,
I've learned to just head them off on that. So if I walk in with back pain, I'll go, I am aware I am overweight. I have back pain.
don't panic, people. I know it won't be a shock. It's okay.
Yeah.
I am aware. It's all right. It's okay.
But
Yeah,
what kind of world we live in, though, where you have to say these things about yourself? Like, I am aware that I'm not typical. You don't need to tell me. Look,
yeah. This is not a shock. This is not a shock. Yeah.
I
I
have
see my
access
body
to
every day.
scales. I have a mirror. Like I am very aware of what I'm like as a person. Like
Mm. Can I just add what NT and ND World has shared, what AD shared?
yes,
The
which
last thing they shared would be
yeah, this one.
fantastic. This is probably from quite a while back in the conversation. I saw it. I thought, and then we started talking about something else.
Yeah.
Um,
This comment came in a while ago, but that is your ability to sit with discomfort and listen and learn and take action.
yeah, sitting with discomfort is really, yeah, it's a really important thing. 100%. And you were saying about that earlier, David, weren't you?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, when you listen to, I see this all the time on social media. Around people going, well, I didn't mean it that way, or no, I'm actually not racist, and then just like doubling down on racist stuff, and you're just like,
yeah,
if people tell you that something you have said is an issue, you need to address that issue,
yeah,
not make it into a bigger issue. Like I don't understand how many times we have to say this. Like it just doesn't. And then the worst thing for me, my experience um, is that I read one of the comments and then just got myself a bit confused. Yeah. Oh, but I'm ADHD. Okay. Yeah. I still don't understand why you can be racist. Like it's like have I missed something here? What did I miss that day where they were like, "That's all right. You have a
yeah.
peculiar brain. You can be as racist as you like."
And
Not really.
whilst you mention this, I think when we're talking about privilege and the lack of privilege, how
Mm.
often do you see like someone commits an atrocious crime and autism gets brought into it? It seems to be happening every other week now. And
Mm.
on the top of my mind, there's a particular case that happened recently that just came to its conclusion that I don't want to bring up without a trigger warning. So, I'm going to mention Brianna, uh, and one of the first things I saw come out of the live updates of that trial was, oh well, one of the perpetrators was autistic, and I was like, how does that have any relevance to being a murderer?
Literally. I just yeah, or like transphobia and bigotry. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make any sense.
Like it really annoys me when people they can't just accept that people do shitty things. Like no, like people do shitty things. It doesn't have to be something to do with like a minority identity. You don't have to take minorities and make them the poster children for horrible crimes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't know because so I don't know if they've used that as an excuse. Well, they're autistic, so like they're gonna be like into hate crime. I mean, or are they using it like, oh well, he's autistic, so he didn't know. Like what side of the fence are they hitting with that? Like, is
Yeah,
it
I think it's a way of distancing themselves from it. Well, I'm not like those people,
oh
so I
yeah,
would never do something like that. Look at how much more morally sound I am because I am not that.
oh yeah. Oh, I hadn't thought about it at all. Othering, yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense.
I think a
And
lot of the ways that people
sensationalization as well, like AD said, sensationalization as
I
well.
think a lot of the othering that goes on is an attempt to distance ourselves from perceived moral failings. Um, and as this person just said, Enord, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm sorry if I didn't. Demonizing anyone different to the master race, because let's face it, there is one right now.
100%.
And it's not okay that this keeps happening.
Yeah, she was so young as well, literally.
Yeah,
It's atrocious. So yeah, and I think, when I was talking about healthcare inequity earlier being one of the biggest things, but actually just the privilege of being able to walk around in safety
yeah,
is humongous. Like, you know, I wouldn't walk round. So Jay's gone off to see his friends today, lives around the corner. Like, I wouldn't be walking through the dark in the area that I live in. Actually, probably anywhere, actually.
Yeah.
You know, by myself as a person who's perceived as female, like, no, I wouldn't be doing that at all. And yet,
I
you know, Jay's got quite a lot of confidence to be able to do that, and fair play to him. But like, it was, I think it's one of those things that keeps coming up about if there was a day where there were no men on the earth, what is it that women, they don't use gender minorities as well, but I am going to, women and gender minorities would do? And most of the women are just like, I'd go running at night.
yeah.
I'd take my dog out for a walk when I got home when it's dark at night and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
real, like, base level shit about just being able to leave your house when it's dark. Like, there's something wrong there, you know?
And I can attest to how prevalent that is, because as a teenager, I've always been a fairly big bloke. But I used to wear makeup when I was younger. Quite obviously wear makeup as well. It was quite out there. I embrace the fact that I like making people feel a little uncomfortable sometimes. But as a man in makeup, I got victimized so often as a teenager that I now no longer do it,
Mm,
because even now, as a man, a big man who could easily defend himself, not wearing makeup, I still feel scared to go out at night. And we're
mm,
talking like 15, 16, 17
yeah,
years on.
100%. Yeah. And I feel like the biggest privilege that we haven't been able to talk about tonight because we've just not run out of time is like just not living in a war zone.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, because let's face it, if you live in a war zone, it doesn't matter who you
yeah.
are. You're in a war zone.
So yeah, everything that's going on in Palestine, you know, it's absolutely horrifying. And having seen like videos of people kind of being marched off to all sorts of atrocities, especially women and children, it's just yeah, really, really scary business. And I can't imagine what people are going through. And um, so the biggest privilege is not having to asylum seek, not having to, for as difficult as it is for us to be validated in healthcare and employment, in housing, in all sorts of different things, to not even just be able to cross the border somewhere safely
Yeah.
and then be taken in by people and then live in a country where you don't necessarily speak the same language. And oh, Jesus, that's just, yeah, that's too
Yeah.
much. It's too much.
It is. But to sort of round out the podcast episode, I'm not going to try and make it feel more cheerful, because I don't believe we always have to finish on a happy note.
No.
Sometimes things make us feel uncomfortable, and
Mm,
that's okay, because that's when we're learning. What I will say, though, is this concept of neuroanarchy, it's really important to neurodivergent communities, because by decentralizing, by detaching ourselves from the capitalist machines of society, from the hierarchies that are clearly not doing very much good in society, we can start working towards building our own world. As Dr. Nick Walker, she says, throw away the master's tools in her essay at the beginning of her book, Neuroqueer Heresies.
mm, mm.
The master will not give us the tools to dismantle their own home.
Yeah,
So we
100%.
have to make the tools ourselves. And I do believe that neuroanarchy is one of those tools. The rise of the autistic rhizome and that interconnected but never fully dependent network of communities that can mutually benefit from each other's lived experience.
Mm,
That's
mm,
where our power lies. That's where
100%.
our strength lies. And I think it's time that we pushed further away from the systems in society that have been holding us within these weird hierarchies of who has a right to speak and who doesn't.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we do, yeah. I think like stuff like mutual aid. and other kind of like radical imagination of what things can be. Like, I think that was the part of your book that I liked the most, A New Normal, is not just like, oh, this is all the crap that happens to neurodivergent people and autistic people specifically, but like, what could the future be? Not within the realms of what we know boundaries to be currently, but like, what could the future be? And I think that kind of radical imagination is really what we need to be able to say, okay, this is where we currently are. We are very aware that it's shit. But what could it be?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to come to a stop. I will say, as you brought up my books, my latest book, Cams in Crisis, is available at the moment. It says there on the screen on Amazon, but it's usually available from places like Waterstones, WH Smith's, Barnes and Noble in the US. Although it's quite a UK-centric book, because Cams is the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service over here, and it's about how they fail autistic people. So it's a lot of that healthcare inequality stuff we talked about earlier. But if you want to check it out, please do go forth and read. Also, The New Normal was mentioned. That was my first ever book, and I'm very proud of it. But thank you to everyone who's come and joined in the comments tonight. Thank you, Katie, for yet another smashing episode of David's Divergent Discussions. I'm probably going to have to make you an official co-host at some point.
Yeah, I'm always here. Like, emergent dreams. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that. Good work.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who's come along and listened this evening, and I will see you all in the next episode, which, to be honest, I can never remember. I always want to remember when the next episode is. Apparently, it's on Monday the 12th at... Oh yeah, that's it. The next episode will be Monday the 12th at 7:30 p.m. UK time, and I'll be with Fergus Murray talking about education, well-being, and monotropism.
Fantastic.
So that'll be a good one. And also, if you are in London on March the 2nd, I'm doing a book signing in Woolwich. Details can be found in the event section of my Facebook page. So yeah, do feel free to come along, say hi, get me to write my name on something, preferably not a contract. I have a tendency of signing things I shouldn't. So I'm trusting you all here not to like sign me up for something like, I don't know, donating my left leg to your dog or something.
What about the right one? Is the right one up for grabs? I don't know.
You laugh, but you don't know how many things I've accidentally signed contracts for because I do not read what I'm signing.
God, do not tell the internet this. Do not tell the internet this, David. Shush.
Okay, well,